Good afternoon. President Bongbong Marcos says the conflict between Israel and Iran has no significant effect on the Philippines' economy. Petroleum prices shot up as the two Middle Eastern countries exchanged airstrikes for 12 days. However, in a chance interview on Wednesday, June 25, Marcos says the conflict's effect should be manageable, especially after the ceasefire announced by U.S. President Donald Trump. According to Marcos, he and his economic managers met to assess the impact of the Middle East tensions.
We looked at it at ina-analyze namin kung paano mangyayari. And nakita natin that the effect on the economy should be manageable. May effect siyempre kahit paano pag tumaas ang presyo ng langis. So far, there's no effect. So that there is no significant effect on the economy. Yun lamang, binabantayan natin ngayon, yung price gouging.
The president also says there is no need for talks about subsidy yet, as the prices of oil have not gone up again. Marcos assures that the government is continuously monitoring the prices of oil and other commodities. The ceasefire announced by Trump took effect on Tuesday, June 24. The Israeli government said it agreed to the U.S. deal after achieving all of its objectives in the war with Iran. Iran said that it was ready to return to nuclear negotiations with the U.S. as the ceasefire took hold. Vice President Sara Duterte says she cannot be compelled to answer allegations in the articles of impeachment after the Senate impeachment court returned them to the House of Representatives. In her 35-page answer ad cautelam, Duterte says there should be no reason for her to answer the charges when there are no articles of impeachment with the impeachment court, but she says she still had the right to be allowed to answer the charges against her. Duterte stresses that requiring her to answer the allegations now is supposedly tantamount to requiring an accused to answer criminal charges, which the court has not yet decided to act upon or receive. The Vice President also asks the Senate to junk the articles of impeachment against her, describing these as nothing more than a scrap of paper. She reiterates that the fourth impeachment complaint against her violated constitutional prohibition against the filing of more than one case against an impeachable official within a year. Duterte also denies the allegations against her, including bribery, corruption, betrayal of public trust, misuse of confidential funds, and political destabilization. She then asserts that the totality of the circumstances shows there are no grounds for impeachment, thus conviction cannot be sustained. The Vice President enters a plea of not guilty without waiving any of her jurisdictional and other objections over the charges. House prosecutors previously said the one-year ban on new complaints did not take effect because the first three raps were not forwarded to the Office of the House Secretary General. San Juan Representative Isabel Maria Zamora cited a Supreme Court ruling that the one-year prohibition on filing new impeachment complaints will start only after the charges are forwarded to the House Committee on Justice. Prosecutors of the International Criminal Court deny that they agreed to the interim release of former President Rodrigo Duterte to an unspecified country. In a filing made public Tuesday, June 24, the prosecution argues that the defense's proposed location poses logistical challenges and raises significant security concerns for witnesses and the integrity of court proceedings. In their request, Duterte's counsel Nicholas Kaufman said that the country has already agreed to receive Duterte. Kaufman said the ICC prosecution did not oppose the interim release request. The defense's public filing does not specify the country that would receive Duterte. However, its recent opposition, the prosecution says no agreement was reached with the defense regarding the interim release to the undisclosed country. The prosecution says the agreement to the conditions was under the impression that Duterte would be received by a country different from what the defense seems to suggest. The prosecution describes as inappropriate the host country that the defense had said agreed to receive Duterte. The prosecution states that the country proposed by the Duterte camp does not share the same extensive history of cooperation with the ICC as the previously discussed alternative. They also state that the filing highlights severe practical difficulties in implementing essential conditions such as regular reporting and attending trials. The prosecution argues that the immense distance to the venue of the trial would render it impossible to manage Duterte's mandated appearances. Beyond logistics, the prosecution also raised concerns about the unnamed country's capacity to uphold certain security-related conditions for Duterte's stay. The prosecution also cites Duterte's documented history of making disparaging and insulting remarks about heads of state and world leaders. ICC-accredited lawyer Joel Butuyan previously said that Duterte's interim release would cause great concern among the families of extrajudicial victims during the former president's crackdown on illegal drugs. And these are the stories you need to know today. I'm Neil Mercado. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Red. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good afternoon.